All systems go. Clear for liftoff.
What is going on, everyone? This is Sheets, and welcome to the recap of Week 7 of the Survivor Pool experience, where we go over what we thought about for last week, talk about what worked, what didn't work, whether to be results-oriented or not, things like that. And then tomorrow, we're going to proceed with our analysis of Week 8, somehow. We were at Week 8. So again, just a couple of announcements again, for those who are watching this for free, if you want to subscribe and get access to the premium show, feel free to do that. Wait, what's going on over there? Hang on a minute. Just have to close this real quick. Where is that? 1 second. We're getting, hold on a second. There you go. In addition to the Survivor Pool stuff, you also, I think, get access to the March Madness stuff, which is a whole other animal. To be able to win those pools, the March Madness Survivor is really one that challenges your brain in a way unlike any contest, and we'll get to that later on. The other thing is that as we get down into the later weeks, you'll find that people get knocked out, so there'll be less people here, and less people that want info. But on the other hand, the people that are here are really in a position to make a decent amount of money, so the information is just that much more valuable. So even if you haven't gotten in there yet, if you feel as though, number one, you need some help with this year's stuff, it certainly will help. And more to the point, where you're still going to be teaching these theories and this process of how to handle this stuff. And I already see within the Discord channel people talking about Survivor in a way that they really weren't in the past. So it's making me happy that I'm able to help people learn how to do this stuff. So anyway, let's talk about Week 7, and this is the custom tool up here, and it's going to update for Week 8 probably, if it didn't already, probably like an hour from now, very latest overnight. But I'm glad that we kind of kept last week's up here first, because we're doing the recap show. We want to see what we looked at. So the first thing we did was we made some adjustments to the EVs, not the EVs, but to the popularity projections on a couple of teams. Like, they had Denver at only 3%, so we think it would be more than that, so we made it 7. We reduced Kansas City's from 42 down to 39. And again, with this tool, you can feel free to make those changes and then recalculate the EV. And when we saw this, we saw that there were 4 teams that had plus EV, and you had to kind of treat all of them very, very similarly, because they were all good EV, so you had to compare which of them had future value you had to worry about, and which you didn't have to worry too much about. And we also separated single picks from double picks and things like that. So the first thing we looked at was Green Bay, and Green Bay, they had a pretty good they had a good EV 1.1, but again, it's each entry is only worth on average about 4 times the original, so it's not that big of a deal to snap up the EV unless you are really going to, minimize future value also. So when you have a 1.1 team like Green Bay, as we talked about, you really need it's nice to play them, but it would be nice if there weren't other great options. And Green Bay, again, this map will update probably the next day or so, but Green Bay is one of the top 2 options in Week 9, as we talked about, not to mention maybe some other weeks. So Green Bay, forget -7, they're probably going to be -14 there. So it's not just that they're a good value in Week 9, it's that they're like insane value in Week 9. Okay. But it's not just that. All these other weeks, like week 11, they could be valuable. Week 12, they could be valuable. Even week 14, they could be valuable, etc. So I didn't like Green Bay in either singles or doubles. When I say singles or doubles, I mean pools that require doubles eventually. But I did say, actually in the Discord later, that if you were in kind of one of those revival pools, specifically for like single entry, I didn't think Green Bay was that bad to start off with. So if you played like one of those revival pools, you played Green Bay, that wasn't bad. The other one we talked about was Kansas City. We'll get back to Denver in a second, but Kansas City I thought was perfectly reasonable to play in single pick pools. Okay. They had, they obviously have a good amount of future value, but most of their future value, as I was, analyzing it, was in the later weeks. Okay, like they're not going to be 10-point favorite over week 12. We'll get to week 8 in a minute. But like the majority of their future value is out in week 16. So in these bigger single pick pools, I really didn't mind playing Kansas City there. So we did like that. But as far as doubles go, I thought it was a pretty bad idea to play Kansas City. So we didn't recommend Kansas City at all in doubles. Because again, like it's one thing to only have them available in week 16 for singles, but week 16 in these big pools where you're going to certainly have to make picks in week 16, it's very, very important to have a team like Kansas City available for that. So we didn't want any Kansas City over there. So Denver was a very interesting case. Okay. So Denver, I thought were just kind of okay in singles, right? And the reason why I thought they were just okay in singles is they really only had one spot to play them, and that was week 10. But the problem is that the week 10 spot is going to be so good, okay, in a week that's going to be really tough, that I thought it was kind of important in singles to save them for week 10, okay? So in single picks, I didn't really like I didn't really like Denver too much. Now, with respect to other teams in single pick pools, I really didn't like anybody else. I thought it was Kansas City, and that was pretty much all I liked. Maybe a little bit of Green Bay. New England's, these guys are low EV teams. So if you have these low EV teams in the single pick pools, I mean, you really need to have zero future value for us to play them in single picks. So Pittsburgh, plenty of spots. We'll get to that. New England, plenty of spots. Or even Seattle has some spots. So there was just no need to go down here in single pick pools. So I thought Kansas City was perfectly okay. So in doubles, though, okay, I thought that Denver was a very, very strong play because, okay, yes, they are a good play in week 10, but there's no doubles in week 10. Okay, so they have very little, if any, future value in the double pick weeks. So that's why I thought that of all these high EV teams, I thought Denver was actually very, very reasonable and probably the best in doubles. We'll get to what happened there in a minute. And then the other thing we talked about were the low future value teams. Well, first of all, let's talk about Detroit. Detroit has incredible spots coming up, not to mention week 12, which is they're going to be a huge favorite over the Jets. And what is this going to be? 15, maybe more, considering what's going on with the Jets right now. Oh, that's Baltimore. I meant but Detroit is Detroit's playing the Giants, so it's not going to be as bad, but they're still going to be minus 12 there. So that's going to be a pretty smash type play. There could be a smash in 16. There's all kinds of opportunities to play Detroit. So not to mention even week 9 is a possibility. So we thought Detroit was no good in either singles or doubles. So the teams, the low future value, or not even we thought were the low future value teams or the low EV teams were Pittsburgh, New England, Chicago, okay, and to some degree Seattle. And the way I ranked them was kind of like from the bottom up. I thought New England was the worst of those because, again, when you're giving up EV, you got to get something for that. And when you're giving up EV of a team like Denver, for example, I mean, and going down to like 0.9 and 0.89 and all that stuff, you really need like a very, very low future value path. And New England's was the worst of all of these because, they in week 11 have this super smash spot against the Jets. Now, I tempered it a little bit because it depended on what pool you're in. Because if you're in, say, the Ship It Nation pool and some of the others where you don't have doubles until week 12, then it's not as bad to burn New England, okay? But in the splash pools where your doubles in week 11, it is really bad to burn 11. So I didn't think New England was a complete toss-out, but I thought they were the worst of those double pick selections. The next one I thought was I thought actually Pittsburgh and Chicago were pretty close. Okay. So again, the analysis was this: like Chicago certainly had the worst EV. Okay, but Chicago, in my opinion, had much less future value. Okay, than Pittsburgh. Chicago, the only time you really could justify playing them is maybe week 15. Okay, and that is a double pick week, so it's not that great to have burned them. So Chicago, I thought was very strong, and then I also thought that Pittsburgh was pretty strong, but and again, the reason for them is they do have some future value. So like a week 11 home against Cincinnati, you know, not bad. Okay, that's certainly an okay spot. As it turns out, week 15 in Pittsburgh, home against Miami, that could be a good spot. So all three of these teams, like Pittsburgh, New England, and Chicago, I mean, I felt they all had some spots, which is why I did rate Denver ahead of them. Okay, so I had Denver and then close behind, kind of like the sum of like Pittsburgh, Chicago, and New England. And I figured that Seattle, if you had them available still, you're probably better to hold them until week, week 11? There was some week where you could have played Seattle with kind of effect. Yeah, week 10, actually. So, okay, this is what I was talking about with week 10. So week 10, if you didn't have the Broncos, or if you already burned the Broncos, you're going to need somebody in week 10. And I felt that Seattle was a good option in week 10. So if you had Seattle available, but you didn't have the Broncos, then I would save Seattle and then go ahead and play, and then play Seattle in week 10. But if you have the Broncos available, you can go ahead and play Seattle now, and then save Denver for week 10. So that was definitely a point of not contention, but of discussion. Okay, so the other team that people talked about was Cleveland, and it was definitely a very, aggressive speculative play, specifically in pools with a zillion people in it with doubles. I just didn't think that it was worth dropping all the way to 0.84 EV to get there, especially when you had other options. So that was the analysis heading into last week. And now we could talk about results a little bit. So for those of you that have never played Survivor before, and this is your first experience, I don't know whether you're mad at SHIPIT Nation or mad at me for sucking you into this, or psyched about it, because I mean it's really taxing, to sweat these teams, especially when you put all this work into it and one loss knocks you out. So this Denver thing was like a roller coaster of epic proportions. They were basically out of the game forever. They showed no signs of life, and the Giants were just basically stomping on them. And then they head in the fourth quarter, it was like over. They had I think 1% winning chances, if that. And then they came just storming back through a combination of events. I mean, listen, we talked about the Arizona game from a couple weeks ago. That was different because they had 30% of the people on them, whatever. I mean, Denver was a little lower owned, but I know a lot of us had them, right? So they came storming all the way back, and they pulled off the miracle comeback, only to have the Giants take it back from them in the last minute, thanks in large part to a pass interference call, only to have Denver re-suck out on them after a missed extra point, et cetera, et cetera. So, boy, oh boy. I don't know if you guys have it in you for that type of cardiology, but that was the big sweat. Everything else was easy breezy. Actually, I should say Green Bay was a struggle if you played them. The Kansas City wipeout, Pittsburgh, Oh, so Pittsburgh on Thursday, that was the rough one, because that ended up, on the numbers as the best play of them all. And it ended up only 4% of the people took Pittsburgh, making them probably the best play of them all. If we knew what the ownership was, but they ended up losing at the end, like everybody else. But New England was easy. Chicago was relatively easy. And Cleveland, they were freaking cakewalk. Okay. So what happens is very few people, if anything, got knocked out, but everybody was able to, to position themselves and to reposition themselves and to shuffle around. And all these people that took Kansas City, yeah, they had a nice, easy time of it. But now, when you play Kansas City, you're hoping someone else gets knocked out. And nobody else got knocked out. So now they burned Kansas City and we have two in the single entries, for no compensation, right? You didn't go up. Like your EV going into the game was like 1.1, and your actual EV was like 1. You know what I mean? You basically didn't even realize any of that EV, even with the win. So very, very, I won't say bad result. It's always a good result when you win, but now you burn Kansas City and you have to struggle. Now you don't have to struggle if you've already mapped and you've already planned for these things, and we're going to talk about that when we go over this tomorrow. But it's an interesting way to assess how you did when everybody survives. I mean, when everybody survives, basically whoever took the team with the lowest future value ended up winning. So whoever took Cleveland gained the most. Whoever took, I guess, Chicago maybe gained the second most. And then I guess I'd have to say that whoever took Denver gained the third most, because I still think that that's really the only spot for them in Week 10. Now we'll get there, but Week 10 is an important spot for them. But that's pretty much the only time, not the only time, but I'm guessing is one of the only times you're going to be able to use them. Maybe Week 16, maybe that's way down the road. Who knows what Jacksonville's going to be? But we'll see. So that's pretty much all that I have as far as the recap goes. By the time we start this tomorrow, the tool will have updated. Let me see if it's updated now. Oh, you know what? I have the wrong. Just so you guys know, I have the wrong. I have my offsite one, but this is what it would look like on the SHIPIT Nation tool. It's the same thing. Let's see. Yeah, it didn't update yet. Let's see. No, it did not update. It looks like it said it updated, but it is not updated yet. So it will update soon. Okay, that is going to do it, everybody. I will see you guys tomorrow. Good luck.